And this is the tissue. Did you get from me? Yeah. So now. You did want to wait till about 10 after to 2:15, Roxanne, for
Right, and
everyone?
make sure everybody's on, right.
Yeah, okay.
So in the meantime, if people could just put in their name and where they're from.
Hi, Ann.
Hey, Beth, how are you?
Did you get my note about the note?
Yes.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry. Yeah.
As long as you have the poems.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
what matters.
Yeah. Got the poems, got the outline. Yeah.
How long does it take you to get back to Boston?
About 3 hours.
Yeah. You do
Not
this,
bad.
you do this every weekend or?
Not every weekend, but a lot of weekends. It's worth it.
Do you know Maxime Schreier at Boston University?
I don't. Who is that?
He's professor of Jewish studies and Russian and Slavic languages,
Huh.
and he's a poet.
Oh,
He's a poet. One of my reviewers. I thought you might have known him from the Boston community.
yeah. No, I don't know his name.
He won't be here today. He's unfortunately on leave in Italy on sabbatical.
Poor thing.
Poor soul.
Oh, that sounds troubling.
I said, you sure you don't want to tune in? Having a little prosecco on the plaza. He said, no, ciao. And that was it.
Yeah, needles and trades. Yeah. Oh, so, hey, Beth,
Yeah.
I will read the part from the notes about the mural. Is that okay?
Yeah, it would make sense, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That's amazing. So we have that connection.
Yeah. It struck me just now. Even after reading everything, and I was like, where did my mother go? And I asked Emily, and she was like, somewhere in Manhattan. And she went. I actually have her whole senior thesis here, or whatever it is. And I was like, I wonder if it's the same place.
So your next, poetry is you're going to take that senior thesis and turn it into a book.
Oh my God. Want to see how big it is? Look at it.
Wow.
That's what high school was in those days. Hi, Caroline. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Beth.
Canada.
I came on board. I just sent you a note though. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Am I on? Okay. I have something I have to do this afternoon, so I'm gonna have to sneak out early. But I read the book. It's wonderful. It's
Thank you.
very interesting. I really like the format. It's really an inspiration.
Thanks.
Good.
Elaine and Hugh, good friends.
Hey,
Good to see you.
Want to change our name? Elaine and Hugh.
There we go.
Ed's over there in the anonymous audience.
I'm the gopher.
Where is it? I'm looking for the gallery. It's got to be here.
He's
Ah,
up in
there
the
we
upper
go.
gallery.
Yeah, I got it.
We used to call them in France, we called them
The Barbie seats.
the stall de face, where all the students sat for, for a nickel.
Yeah, the
Or,
Barbie
behind the
seats.
standing room only in the Comédie Française. Yeah. Don, great that you're here. I know you have to cut out for cultivating voices, but I'm glad you came.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me know about it. I'm glad to be here too, and I hope I get to hear a little bit.
Yeah, you will.
Hey, Don, did you take that picture behind you?
No, no, I found that on the net. It's pretty cool though.
That's a cool picture.
Yeah, here. It's very cool.
That is, yeah.
It's it's like it's actually a bunch of pictures I found that they're called transit pictures, where people, photographers go to places and take photographs of transits of like the James Webb Telescope transiting across the moon, behind the moon or
Mhm.
in front of Saturn. And this is like that, except it's
Yeah.
just the sun with the guy's car.
That is
And
really neat.
Mhm.
Are you passing by today?
Mike, we're moving to your area
Okay.
in about a month.
Oh yeah, where you going?
We're going to actually moving to Chappaqua,
Okay.
which is
I'll see you
it's pretty
then.
close
Bye-bye.
by. We got really lucky and found this little cottage that we can afford, and it's really close to Marcia's kids. So
Hmm.
Or you'll be close to the Billeries,
I don't know who they are,
Bill and
but
Hillary.
oh yeah,
Oh, that's right. They're
actually,
in Chappaqua
You'll
too.
see
That's
him in
right.
the little restaurants
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
in
yeah,
town all the time.
the people the people that were in their backyard, they said that they see them all the time.
Mhm.
Well, they see him all the time.
Well, Chappaqua is always was considered one of the more ritzier areas in Westchester County.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's definitely a different kind of place than either of us have ever lived. So
Mm. Yeah,
I hope,
the further east you go to, and the further east and north that you go in Westchester County, it gets a little bit more ritzy.
yeah,
5
Yeah.
o'clock, you come back?
I used to work out in that area.
4 o'clock.
I should give you your.
North Salem, Chappaqua, that whole area.
uh-huh. What kind of work did you do?
I did telephone company, putting the cables up and together.
Huh.
And then for the last 4 or 5 years before I retired, not after, before I retired, I was doing strictly the cell towers and the fiber and stuff.
Oh,
We have to
okay.
talk more when I can get you face to face.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Beth, I'm sorry, the folks are waiting for me. I have to go, but all the best, very best.
And
It's
you
a
can get it,
wonderful.
you can get the tape when it's,
Yes.
when it's done.
Good, good.
I'll send
It's
out
a
a message.
wonderful book. I hope
Yeah.
everybody gets a chance to read it and get
Yeah.
it.
Thank you,
Take
thank you.
care, Caroline.
You're welcome.
And
Bye-bye.
let's see what happens with your project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You've inspired me.
good.
Good. Okay.
Carolyn.
How can I leave? I don't know how to leave.
When you
Okay.
say tape, you do mean the video, right?
The video, yes.
Yeah.
You see, I'm old school.
No, no, no. I kind of figured that, and I was like, okay, that's fine.
Old school video
Nice to
is
hear it
tape
that way.
for me.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Steve, I'm glad you made it.
I can't get my photo up. I
Yeah,
don't
hi.
know why.
Hi there. I'm glad I made it
I
there.
guess it doesn't matter.
Hey, Steve.
Driving up from my granddaughter's graduation in Tallahassee to Atlanta, so I'll be keeping the video off, but I will be listening.
David, Arthur McMaster, who I believe was in our Palm Beach Poetry Festival workshop.
Yeah, did we
together.
share a, we were in a
He may
workshop
be
together.
coming on, so say hello. He's coming in from Greenville, South Carolina.
But Beth, I can't find my photo. It doesn't matter much, but anyway, I just can't figure
I
out how
know,
to
you're
get it.
here.
Oh. Okay.
Beth, do you want to just take a look at the participants? Click to the participants thing and
Yeah.
see if there's anybody missing that we have to reach out
Yeah,
to.
the author's not here.
Okay,
And,
okay, anybody we have to reach out to, please reach out to,
okay,
because it's already at 2:05.
Tammy.
We're going to give everybody 10 more minutes and then we're going to start.
Rachel's here and Dawn. We're missing about 4 people. Let me take a scunch. Oh, there's Julie came in. Hi, Julie. It's so wonderful that you're here.
Hi.
Okay. Is Ellen Devlin in yet? Ellen, you here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. You don't know me with my long gray hair.
well, mine isn't long, but it certainly is. I'm waiting for it to turn Lady Gaga white. That's what I want.
Yeah, I want
But
that
it's
too.
never gonna be that good looking. Okay, let's see. Ron's here, Mike's here. Paula from Florida.
Yeah, I'm
Are
here.
you
Hi.
here yet? Okay,
Mhm.
you're in. Melissa, did you make it? Melissa Mendelson is not in. And I don't know if Helene Fisher can make it because she has a conflict, Helene Fisher. That's
Okay,
2.
we'll just reach out to the missing people.
Okay.
You know, let's give it one more shot to get them in. I have sent
and Mitchell.
everyone the
Mitch,
live
are you in yet?
Check the participants link. You know, you have participants there on your
Yes.
screen.
Right.
And just look.
I did.
And if you don't see them, they're not here.
Right.
You've got 20 people on the call right now. And so we're missing 5 people.
Right. I'm just comparing what I see to my own list.
Yeah, and everybody who's here, can you just put your name in the chat and where you're from?
Okay. Yes. Awesome.
Of course, I didn't do it right.
What did she say? October, Sunday afternoon, October 12th to the 19th. October 12th, gone. Still have a bit for that. Sorry if everybody hears me talking to myself. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Everybody got so quiet.
Okay, I reached out to everyone who's not on screen yet. Okay. And Sandy. Okay. Wow. We're waiting for the stragglers before we start. Another 3 minutes. They might come in late anyhow, let's see. The same beret, David. From 15 years ago?
No, I have like about a
That's a
dozen.
new one. You have another
Yeah,
dozen.
no, it's not the same one. Just looks the same.
I know. It's really good to see you.
It's nice to see you too. I had other colors, but I settled on black, so I have like 7 or 8 black ones.
I have a bunch of them too. It's my favorite hat. I love the photo you sent that you posted with that poem. That's
Yeah.
part of your property.
Some of it is up to the trees.
Beautiful.
Behind that is I don't know who owns it. They'll develop it one day, but fortunately, they haven't developed it for 5
You're
years.
still teaching, at the college?
No, no.
No? So I guess we can start.
It is now 2:15.
Who's that just came in, Janine?
Beth, we can start.
Okay. So welcome everyone, and thanks for giving up part of your Sunday for this book launch for my new work, A Yellowed Notebook. I just wanted to show you the cover, if I can get myself to be set in the center of the meeting. This is the cover of a yellow notebook, the title superimposed on a page from my father's spiral notebook, which you will be hearing the readings from, along with my poems. So a couple of preliminaries that we'll get through before we start. You know that you have your video muted and the throughout the afternoon, except for we will have an open chat during our break, and at the end, there will be plenty of time. And everyone has put in where they're from and what their name is, so I know who's in the house. Info about the book has been posted at the end of the chat already for purchase information and for reaching out to me and finding out what's going on with my poetry activities from my website. In addition to myself reading, there will be 5 surprise readers, poet friends, 5 out of the 7 reviewers that wrote the wonderful reviews at the beginning of the book will be reading 2 of their favorite poems from the book as we go through the afternoon. And I'm going to introduce them as we get to their part in the reading today. So apart from that, there will be no formal introduction of me. You can find out all that information from my website and the book. I really do want to tell you how this book got started and where it came from. When my father died after a 10-year battle with chronic heart disease in 1977, his things were packed up, and I moved twice since then. And recently, when I moved back to New York, I found this box and opened it up about 10 years ago and found this old spiral notebook dated in the last few months before he died. And when I finished my last book, which was In the Aftermath 9/11 Through a Volunteer's Eyes in honor of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I said, I have to do something with this, but what? So I decided to do a collaborative hybrid, not with someone alive, which you usually do when you do collaborative poetry and writing of any kind. It was someone who is no longer with us. And it's a hybrid because it contains poetry, prose, poems, and a lot of inserts from the pages of his notebook and his other writings included. They will be presented as part of the poems in different places. You will hear my father's writing and then my poem. And in other places towards the end of the book, they are actually incorporated into the poems themselves. So the book is structured as a rondo with 3 sections or movements. The first section has to do with family. The second or middle section has to do with his work. He was a teacher. He was a working furrier. He was a chairman of the fur department at the High School of Fashion Industries, and he was a writer. In addition to that, there was another technique that I incorporated in the book that is not, hasn't been spoken about, but maybe you can discover it in places in the reading today. I had a workshop with a wonderful New Mexican poet, Arthur Z., at the Hudson Valley Writers Center, of which I am a product. And he was talking about continuity in a manuscript, in a book. And what he was doing was he was taking one word from a poem and inserting it into the following poem throughout the book. So there was a continuity, a connection. I have done the same thing. And you will find it in the first two poems, which I'm going to read consecutively, so you'll hear it. But as you read it, and I hope you have a copy or will purchase a copy, you'll try to find and look for the continuity in the words that follow each poem as you get towards the end. One other thing about the epigraph. The epigraph is really the summary of what I tried to do. It's from Ellen Bass, an incredible poem, How to Apologize. And the epigraph reads, "In one night, we could dream back everything lost." I really challenged myself because there was another epigraph I might have used, and I only wanted to use one because I don't like multiple epigraphs for my own work. But it was from Roger Kamenetz's poem, The Pages and Pages, and it reads, "I wrote in the book wrote in me." So without further ado, I'm going to start by reading some poems in the first section of the book, and then I will call on one of the first surprise readers to follow up. Oh, by the way, now that Blaze is here, she's the one that suggested, when I read this, I said that Blaze Allen, who's the former community coordinator for the Palm Beach Poetry Festival, so sorry it's no longer with us. But she said it reminded her of Natalie Cole's mixed tape with her dad, with Nat King Cole. And I said, really, that's what it is. It's a mixed tape. So let me begin with the first two poems in the book, and let's see if you can find the continuum in the word use. December 1951. Snowdrifts rise on shore. Our skates skim the frozen lake. Father, my sentry. The blizzard. No street lights, no lamps lit in the houses on Ocean Avenue. Just my father and me, headed for King's Highway to search for milk, bread, anything we can find. Threading our way through walls of ice and snow, I sit cross-legged, arms folded across my chest, just as my father instructed, a rope tied around my waist, to the back of the sled, to keep me from falling off. My job, hold tight to the packages on the way home. I don't know how my father carried me, the sled, across the street to the trolley stop, how he followed the tracks under the snow, in the dark. All I can see is the back of his coat, his arms and hands stretched out behind him, pulling the ropes, dragging the sled, the steady crunch of his boots. Dave's Notebook, 1979. Kaplan, Bromberg, Joseph, Luria in Russia. Born in Kishinev, Bessarabia. Family name changed to avoid conscription in the Tsarist army. Joe, my pop. Important Menshevik revolutionary. Exiled to Siberia. Sent 2,000 miles on horseback. Released in the 1905 amnesty. Came to Chicago in 1907-08 to meet mother. I was born in a tenement over Comiskey Park. Baseball. If anyone in our family ever visits the USSR, records of his name exist. The USSR keeps very good records of their pioneer revolutionaries. After Siberia. Grandpa carried his samovar into the dining room, set it on a stand in front of the chair at the head of the table. A heavy silver urn, 2 feet high, engraved with vines and flowers, a pattern common in Bessarabia. No coffee or tea in the cylinder, no bowl or cup to catch the flow of boiling water. A simple plate, thin slices of lemon in the center. I sat in silence watching him. Just before he released the valve, he placed a lump of sugar on his tongue and lifted the saucer of seething nectar to his mouth. And then there is my mother. Memorabilia. My mother was a thrower. We moved too many times in my mother's attempt to better herself. And each time we changed our address, or she had a fight with a family member, she purged more and more of our family history. She gave one grandson my father's watch and gold chain for graduation. He claimed they were stolen after he left home, got an apartment on his own, but I suspect he sold them for rent or food money. Another offspring got my father's jade ring. Haven't seen it in 20 years. I rescued the modern library collection, our ration cards from World War II, copies of the books my father wrote. My nephew has the photo album and the chess set, but I have letters, replete with Polonius-like advice, and my father's pencil-scrawled, yellowed notebook. Mary Gorin, Gordon. Her father a cantor, lost first wife. She had 3 children, including Mary, grandma. Father remarried, more children, about 200 Gordones, live in Buenos Aires, including my uncles and step-uncles. Mother visited them in 1962 at age 78. She flew down. Mother's name also in USSR records. She was caught running an illegal Mimeo machine and jailed. That's how she got a bullet in her spine that could never be removed. Both she and Pup, pioneer revolutionaries. Dave's Notebook, 1977. Mary, the hoarder. Grandma's house in Brooklyn, just my father and me. While Grandma and my father sat on the couch speaking a language I couldn't understand, I wandered. Upstairs in the bedroom, socialist newspapers hung wall to wall across the ceiling, draped over clotheslines. Grandma would pull them down, reread them, month to month, year to year, Romanian, Russian, Hungarian, Yiddish. Whenever I looked up at the papers flying over her bed, I imagined myself in an ancient cavern covered with glyphs no one could understand. My persistent father tried to clean up the mess. He sent me to the kitchen to empty the petrified food from her refrigerator. She retrieved every pickle or plate of weeks-old chicken I threw out, chiding, "This food is still good." And now I'm going to call on the first surprise reader. I'm going to call on a fellow poet and good friend, Ron Bremner, to continue the readings about family. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Ron. If I can find what I wrote about him. Hold on, everybody. This is too important to let go.
Go out for a break.
Grab yourself another drink.
Say one for me.
I had this all written out. So Ron, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Bremner. Glad to be here. I've been writing poetry since the 1970s. Got 3 books and 6 chapbooks published, and I've been in a few journals now and then. So that's my story.
And don't forget to mention the Allen Ginsberg.
Oh yeah, I got four times I've won honors in the Allen Ginsberg Awards. Almost forgot that.
4 books, chapbooks, and hundreds of journal entries.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yes.
So anyway, this is a poem called Grandpa's Studebaker. Sunday morning, the car horn summoned us. My sister and I would jump into the back of my grandfather's car for our weekly excursion to the beach at Reese Park and Floyd Bennett Field. He was a wild man behind the wheel. Red lights, stop signs ignored, never signaled, cut in and out of lanes at will. When he did come to a stop, the shifting gears would lurch the car forward, toss us around like rag dolls. At the beach, Grandpa would take us to the boardwalk. Put nickels in the binoculars so we could watch the planes come in. We'd cross the bridge to Floyd Bennett, climb the steps to the observation deck, stand and watch incoming planes taxi down the runway. Grandpa would identify each one. The only name I still recall was his favorite, the Navy Hellcat. Out on the observation deck, his speech became animated, his voice light, youthful. Even a 4-year-old could notice the change. Where did his love affair with flight come from? I never knew. He died 4 years later of heart disease. One thing I do remember, my father had to pay off hundreds of dollars in traffic violations Grandpa left behind. And now, Sunday afternoons at Grandma's house. Grandma always greeted me in her Sunday best. Handmade sweater, wool skirt, stockings, and pumps. Her curly hair dyed bright red. She taught me to play cards, make bets, cheat without cheating. My father must have told her I ran away again, because she unleashed the same scolding she always gave before she reached under the living room rug to hand me $1. Next time you run away, I give you car fare. Pack you a sandwich. When I was in France, Mary wrote me a letter. I always dreamed to go to school in Paris. Now, you go for me. Thank you and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, so much, Ron. You know, when I asked my readers to choose their favorite poems, 5 out of 7 of them picked Sunday afternoons at Grandma's house. So I picked you first, Ron, because I figured that would really be a poem for you. Okay, continuing with family. We were apartment house people and kids, but there was one time in which we did own our own house. After World War II, my father and one of my uncles built a house, actually a summer colony, spring and summer colony, in the Northwest Woods Mountains of New Jersey, in a place called Lake Hopatcong. And the memories that I have of that bungalow, that house, and we could use it. I often went in times there in the wintertime also to go skating on the frozen ice. I have some poems about that in the book. But it was the one place where we had a home, and I have very fond memories of it. So the next series of poems about family are going to come from the Lake Hopatcong experience. First love. His name was Edgar. My father picked him up from the railroad stop in Landing, New Jersey, to help dig up the boulders, rake the dirt, smooth the ground for laying on the topsoil, which would become our lawn, my mother's gardens. He left each day at sunset. I don't know where he slept. I watched my father and Edgar work on the hill around our bungalow in the unrelenting August sun until lunchtime. Mother made Edgar the same meal, a cheese sandwich and a glass of milk, sometimes an orange. It was my job to carry his tray to the porch. She wouldn't let him inside. Edgar rolled cigarettes, spoke in a strange, soft voice. I didn't care. He had a banjo. After lunch, he'd play his country songs. My darling Clementine, oh, Susanna, teach me the forbidden lyrics to the Big Rock Candy Mountains. I'd share his food, sing with him, dance around his chair. Then one day, he disappeared. My father was a consummate builder, and this poem comes from one of his building experiments. Fanny, Fanny, get me out. We ran towards a terrified cry coming from the stone fireplace he was building at the end of the patio. My father had miscalculated, encased himself inside the tapered walls of the near-finished chimney flue. The only parts of his body still visible from the ground were his face and neck, crimson, drenched in sweat from trying to free himself, his arms splayed across the top of the fireplace, like a crippled airplane at the end of the runway, useless, immobile, and trapped. The three of us gathered crowbars, hammers, pipe irons, anything to hack through the hardening cement and release him, and so we did. Enough to allow my father to haul himself over the rubble, reach his ladder, collapse on the deck chair while we sniggered. Not the only time the women in his life laughed at his quixotic projects. But my father persevered. Despite momentary humiliation, he finished a fireplace envied by all his neighbors. Lounging by the fire on late summer nights, we sat listening to Brahms on the short wave until the flames of that tenacious hearth went out. Okay, this poem is very poignant to me because considering what's going on with the rejections of vaccinations, and I ask all of these officials to talk to the people who went through epidemics. This is called Epidemic Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey. And this is part of my father's letter. Dave's letter, 1976. Ray buying a house. Intangibles. How long would it take Ed to travel? 2 hours each way? Children might not see Ed at all by the time he gets home, like me and my night job. Epidemic, Lake Hopatcong. Newly built houses spread across the mountaintops. Homeowners escaping the polio epidemic raging in the city. My father takes the Delaware Lackawanna from Hoboken. travels 2 hours on the train. We're warned not to leave our room, not to greet him at the porch door. He rushes past us to the bathroom, strips off his clothes, showers with yellow soap and steaming hot water. Only then can we hug him, sit down to dinner. Disinfectant lingers on his body, stifles the smell of hamburgers on his plate. Dave's basement. Bare bulb strung on a wire from the floor beam overhead. Crawl space, hidden from the upstairs noise, illuminated like the back of a closet behind the clothes. Decayed leaves, the smell of warped wood, barely enough space for his rotting bench. My mother's old fruit jars arranged on 2x4s, circling the cinder block. Each jar labeled with his craftsman's hands, with the permanence of blacking, 3-inch nails, 1/2-inch bolts, lug nuts, studs. The jars, packed against the stone-wet walls, now pitted with sand and dust, abandoned in rows, like the pill bottles on the dresser beside his bed. Okay, continuing in Lycopatcom, and I did find my introductions, thank goodness. Our next surprise reader is the inimitable Patricia Carrigan, poet, fiction writer, curator and editor-in-chief of Brownstone Poets, and editor of Sense and Sensibility Haiku Journal, coming out now. I introduce Patricia Carrigan.
Thank you, Beth. It was an honor being here. It was an honor reading your book. And here too, there's so many good poems, especially the one about Brooklyn that you read about. But
I'm a Brooklyn girl.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
you.
Right. Okay. Very hard to pick, but these are two. The Whistler. Marlene and I spent summers on the beach at Lake Hopatcong, listened to Nat King Cole on our portable, lathered in baby oil, faces tilted to the sun, my sister smoking her purloined Pall Malls. My father was a whistler, pop songs, operatic arias, all four movements of Beethoven's Fifth. We'd walk to the edge of the front lawn and whistle. One trumpet-like blast followed by a trailed coda that carried more than a mile down the road. A signal that brought us from the beach up the hill in time for dinner. My sister died last summer, recovering from successful surgery. They weren't certain how it happened. Doctors told us it was probably her heart, just like her father. Except it wasn't like his death. She died in her sleep, alone. But that night, I know he stood at the edge of the hill and whistled her home. And the last one, the stonemason. Our bungalow was built on a hillside overlooking the lake. Each time it rained, the earth reclaimed our yard. Defying nature, gravity, and mudslides, my father set retaining walls, one wall at a time. Digging for stones on the mountain behind our house, flat ones for the foundation, round ones for the center, smooth stones for the top. Loading them onto his wheelbarrow, weaving over the rough trail he'd cut through the woods down to the makeshift quarry on our lawn. I watched him pattern the stones across the grass, measure his flawless plumb lines, set his fortress of blue stones beneath. He was working on the third when they sold the house, putting an end to his artistry. Trowels, shovels, wheelbarrow, gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Congrats.
I'm glad you read those poems instead of me. Thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on to the middle section of the book now, which has to do with his work experience and his life as a teacher and a furrier. And the High School of Fashion Industries, as you will find out, began as the Needle Trades High School, I believe, in the late 1920s and 30s. And then it moved in 1940 to its place in the middle of the garment district, as we know is the Chelsea section of Manhattan, to a building that is now a national landmark. It was built in the Art Deco mode. More about the artistry of the building later on. And he was the chairman of the fur department at the High School of Fashion Industries for almost 30 years. So let's begin. An uncommon day. Dressed in his best suit, white shirt and tie, silver cufflinks he wore only on special occasions, I in my crinoline-lined dress and patent leather shoes. My father invited me to the faculty dining room, introduced me to the other teachers, let me walk across the lunch line on my own. Choose anything you want. Before we left, he took me to the school store where students sold their fashions, scarves, hats, jackets. I picked out a pair of white gloves with pearl buttons. He gave me extra money to buy them, added a bottle of leather cleaner so I could learn to keep them, to take care of them. Keep the gloves just like new. The jacket. Dave's Notebook, 1977. The Gilsbaum machine, with its controlled perforation scale, is an improvement I tried to sell to New York manufacturers 2 decades ago. Its ability to operate at 30 stitches to the inch sounds like a step forward. But I must caution the less experienced sewers that a close stitch is not always practical. On some garments, such close stitching will cause perforation and will tear when stretched. The jacket. My father taught me how to sew. Hems, seams, tears, how to clean my clothes with a special brush he brought home from the shop. So when Howie and Bruce teased me after class, followed me on the way home from PS 174, powdered my new peacoat with chalk socks, ran after me into a strange apartment house, chased me up the stairwell, tore the buttons off my coat, my shirt, took turns pinning me against the wall, told me not to tell my parents or they would kill me. I knew how to mend the damage before my sister got home from school. My parents got home from work, so nobody would know. Okay, and let me read the notes about this next poem that's coming up. In 1950, there was a teacher strike in New York City, the first one. It was promulgated by the High School Teachers Association, HSTA. And my father was an originating member of that union, which later turned into the United Federation of Teachers and now nationwide AFT. The students went out on strike in sympathy of the teachers for 3 days. And the mayor, Bill O'Dwyer at that time, threatened to have them arrested as all Reds, as communists, under the McCarran Act, which was the Internal Security Act of 1950. Sound familiar? Deja vu. So this poem is called It All Started with a Proposed Teacher Pay Raise, the high school teachers' strike of 1950. Everything was strange about that day, out of order. I was always alone in an apartment after school, mother at work, sister at dance practice, father staying late at his high school to coach the basketball team, teach night classes for the veterans. I was a latchkey kid, long before the term was invented. Then I heard the lock turn, saw my father come through the door, his normal steady gaze displaced by panic. He ran past me down the hallway, straight to the bedroom. No greeting, no explanation, changed out of his school clothes, spent the next 2 hours pacing from room to room until my mother came home. I caught snatches of conversation behind their closed bedroom door. HSTA called for a walkout. Mayor ignored our demands for a raise, so we walked. High school kids went out on strike too. Schools are closed. Don't know if they'll let teachers back in tomorrow. Don't know how long we'll be out. No strike fund, no savings. O'Dwyer thinks we're all Reds. Could be fired, brought up on charges under the McCarran Act. His fear spread. I was too young to understand. I didn't know what to do, so I locked myself in my room, put on my records, loud. Old fur coats are natural, renewable, biodegradable, and sustainable. The negative environmental impact caused by faux fur and synthetic fibers in general is far greater than real fur. Old fur coats can even be composted for your garden. Fur Source, January 2020. The Advocate. Climbing the steps to the concert hall, protesters threw eggs and paint on the jacket my father made for me from my mother's old mink coat. All I could think of was, if only my father were here. He wouldn't have shouted back at the vandals as I did. My father, always the teacher, would have told them how minks are farmed, their meat used as bait for crabbers, food for wildlife preserves, zoos, and dogs, made into natural fertilizer to keep lawns green, crops from failing, how their oil is infused in biofuel, conditioners for baseball mitts, saddles, how no part of the mink is wasted. He would have instructed them. Furriers are also on the side of animals. I've been a wildlife advocate all my life. He would have pleaded with them not to end an industry, an art form, a part of humanity since Adam and Eve were forced to clothe themselves to survive. I couldn't deliver that lesson. Instead, I cleaned my jacket, restored it back to its natural luster. It still warms me in winter. And now, for the third reader, I am going to call on bowing as I say, Mike Jerkovic, 2025 Ulster County, New York Poet Laureate, President of CAPS, calling all poets. And I wanted to add brilliant poet on his own and jazz aficionado, unreal, Mike Jerkovic.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks everyone for being here to see this afternoon. It's really great to be part of this. It's fun to read along with you while you're reading, read along with all of you while you're reading. And the pieces even take on a deeper meaning when you hear a voice. Before I read the mural, I want to read from the notes section about it. The High School of Fashion Industries in Manhattan's Garment District is home to the WPA, the Works Progress Administration Treasurer. The high school began as Needles and Trade School in 1921, and when the new HSFI was built in 41, it included a sweeping series of Depression-era murals in the auditorium that depict immigrant workers, labor conditions in so-called sweatshops in New York City, the rise of unions and government policies adopted to improve workers' lives. Painted by German immigrant Ernest Fine, the murals now have landmark status. And I also realized today, right before we began, that my mother graduated from there. So this is called a mural. He pushed open the wooden doors to the auditorium at the high school where he taught. Lining the walls on either side, Depression-era murals, each fresco 17 feet high, 65 feet wide. My father explained the first painting as we walked forward. Step slowly past Victory of Light over Darkness. Immigrant life on the Lower East Side, sweatshops, child laborers, tenements. I didn't pay much attention until my eyes fixed on the last panel closest to the stage. The triangle shirtwaist fire. I leaned back against the seat behind me, stretched my neck, lifted my face to take in the scene. Purple smoke billowing from the factory, workers jumping out of windows, women crying and mourning over the dead bodies lying on the street, the girls not much older than me. But the colors, pastels like the chalk set I'd gotten for my birthday, green, yellow, pink, and blue, blue, blue. And then I'm also going to read Victory of Light over Darkness. Even now, when I have to settle for a 2-inch reproduction on the internet, I see the dead woman lying on the ground, eyes shut, mouth agape, body twisted by her fall. Yet she is draped in a bright yellow skirt, geometrically arranged across her torso. A mourner leaning over her, sobbing into her hands, wrapped in regal purple, sculpted like an ancient statue of Athena. No matter how often I see Victory of Light over Darkness, I find comfort in the artist's power to render the unbearable bearable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes. They used to, before the pandemic, they used to allow tours there. If you're ever in New York City, I don't know if it's still possible, but those murals are just overwhelming. It's some of the best that I've ever seen in my life. So we're at the point now where we're finished off with the first 2 sections or movements of the rondo. And I think it's time for us to take like a 10-minute break for everybody to go refresh themselves and refill whatever you're refilling. And we'll be back in, my watch tells me 10 minutes. At 10 after, does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
10 after 3. So you can open your mics if you wish and bring yourself in face to face if you want to chat for a while with the other people who are here. That would be great.
Bobby,
Anybody
you're
have-
doing amazing.
Okay,
Bobby, you're doing amazing.
thank you. That's my granddaughter. Soon to be Dr. Morris.
Hi, Dr. Morris.
Hi, Dr. Morris.
Mother, can you put Zadie on the camera?
No, he went out to replenish himself.
He took his refresher early.
One of these days I have to take you, if I can, to see those murals. They are unbelievable.
I was just looking at it online here. Wow. I never knew they existed.
Yeah.
It's a
You
lot.
used to be able to, they used to do tours, you know, through one of the touring agents in New York City, but I think they stopped it. They definitely stopped it at COVID, and I don't think it ever resumed. It's a shame. I would have loved to gone back and looked at them again as I was writing the book. The
One of
building itself is incredible, Patricia.
One of the other things I wanted to say that drew me to the mural was, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe even 20 years ago, an area playwright around here wanted to put on a play based on the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, and he asked me to try and write some songs and basically help with the book.
Mhm.
And we were going to call it Nina's Fire, coming up with a main heroine, if there could have been such a thing during that part. Unfortunately, the play went nowhere because we ran into all kinds of creative difficulties. But
You know, 2 weeks ago was the anniversary of the Triangle Fire.
yeah,
And every year in the city, they try to hold a little, you know, present flowers, and the Triangle building is still there. And they present flowers and they make speeches of the grandchildren, you know, the survivors of relatives who died. Most of the girls were average age 13, mostly Jewish and Italian immigrants. And yeah, that was the first of the great massive tragedies in New York City, the first.
Beth, another thing they do you might not know about is in some of the places where they actually lived, some of the tenements, somebody writes in chalk like their name and, you know, how old they were in front of different places around the village.
The Lower East Side tenement house is also a national preservation and it's really is an eye opener. We did a tour several years ago, and it's really an eye opener to see how they lived. Yes, the names are there.
Mhm.
And they were like 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, mostly teenagers, you know, forced to work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beth, I'll send you one or two of the show, one or two of the songs that still remain from the show. What would have been the show anyway.
I would love to hear them.
Yeah, I'll send them to you.
Okay, the link for the book is on the bottom of the chat if you want to take a look at it. Let's see. Anyone else have any questions? We'll have an open period at the end also. Did any of you catch the linking word in the first two poems? The word that carried over from the first to the second?
The snow?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And then you'll see from there on, you know, another word is carried on through. Arthur Z was very, very open about it. He said, I don't care if it's even the word an or the. It's going to go into the next poem. And I thought that was very intriguing. I think some other poets have also tried it since. But it is a very good technique, and it keeps the writer, the poet, in sync with having a continuity in terms of thinking about the poems and how they should go.
Hey, I'll be right back. I'm just going to help Emily with something.
Okay, so regards to M.
So you said the murals.
Julie, are you still there? Julie? Julie, are you still there?
She's muted. She might have just stepped away.
Okay. I wanted to ask her if her mom is with her. Her mom was my sister's best friend.
Sorry, it's Julie. I heard you call my name, but I had to step
Hey,
away from
yeah,
the phone for
Julie,
a
is,
minute.
is mom with you?
No, she's not. I'm sorry
Oh.
she couldn't do this today, but maybe if
Yeah.
there's a, she can see the
There
recording
will be,
later.
yes, be a video, there will be a tape, and
Good.
I'll
I'm sure
let you
she'd
know
love to
about it.
see it. I'm sure she would.
She was at the house in Lake Hopatcong. I
I
believe
remember
more
her
than once.
telling me about it.
Yes.
I don't remember details, but I remember her telling me about it.
I have a thing on my bucket list for this summer.
To go
And
back?
that is, I'm in touch with it. There is a Shore Hill Society of the houses that were built there. Ours was house number 42, built in
Wow.
1948. When I
Do you
was a
think it's
baby,
still
when I was
there?
a kid, I was a bit. Yeah, that's the question. I want to know not just the house, but I want to know if that fireplace is still there. They may have torn it down and built a real house, instead of a bungalow.
Right.
I would love to know if they kept those retaining walls on the fireplace. So he put me in touch, the person who's in charge of the Shore Hills Association, put me in charge of an institution that can track it. So first I'm going to find out if it's still there. And then we get in the car and head your way, head west into the hinterland of New Jersey. For me, once I cross, my 11th commandment is thou shalt not go over the George Washington Bridge.
I used to feel the
Like a
same way until I
wasteland for
moved
me.
here.
Huh?
I used to feel the same way until I moved here.
Until you moved here. And and my daughter-in-law is a New Jerseyite, so I can't say this. And I'd love to go to take that trip and see if the fireplace is still there.
Do you happen to remember what the address was, or were there no
Yes,
addresses?
42 Vale Road.
I'm gonna see if I can find it on Google. Vale, like
I thought it was VAIL, but it's VALE. There's a museum about Lake Hopatcong in Landing, New Jersey, which is the head of the lake. And I've been in touch with the museum curator. And he sent me all kinds of pictures and photos in live stream of in the 1950s and 60s.
42 Vale Way.
It could be Vale Way now. It was Vale Road, but it's 42 Vale Way, yes. So I'm going to look it up and see if the house is still there. We were one of the first 100 houses, bungalows that were built.
How far from the lake was it?
About a mile above. A little bit less from a mile up the road.
There's a 42 Vale Way.
Wow.
It would be on the lower side of the road.
Yep.
It looks like there is a house there.
But it's no longer a bungalow, I'm sure. It's too valuable. Now it's a commuting area, It's no longer a seasonal community.
Was it on the corner of Lakeside Boulevard, a larger street?
No. There were two houses. We were below. There were houses up on the hill above us to the left and right. They may have changed the numbers because I tried once to look for my house in Brooklyn and the number isn't there anymore. It keeps changing over time. Okay, are we back in, everybody?
with 1 minute to spare.
Roxanne, are you back in?
Yep, but it's just turned 3:10 now.
Okay, sounds good. All right, before we start, I do have one more introduction that I am going to do, and that's to introduce Roxanne Hoffman, my absolute Zoom guru, who also happens to be an incredible poet, editor, writer, and publisher of Poets Wear Prada. So thank you so much, Roxanne, for all you do for the poetry community.
You're welcome, Beth. It's an honor to be here today. I'm really enjoying listening to everyone read.
Okay. Let me know when you think I should begin. Roxanne.
You can start.
Okay.
It's 3:11.
So we are now in the third act or the third movement or the third section of the book, where we go into my father's retirement and really diminishment. They moved to Florida into a condominium in 1970 when he retired at the age of 57. 57, 58. And they spent, maybe a little older, they spent 7 years in Florida until he passed away in 1977. And all of the things that he used to do, as you've seen and heard in the book, diminished terribly, except his ability to play chess and to write. So I'm going to really start with his writing skills. Dave's Notebook, 1977. To the Board of Directors of the Castle Hills Condominium. The admitted encroachment and the consequent loss of parking spaces at the recreation facilities and clubhouse has affected the unit condominium owners and some other owners in the castle complex adversely. Many of these homeowners who live a distance from the recreation facilities and who bought their homes with expectation of being able to drive to the facilities and pools can no longer do so since there's not enough parking space available. Dave's Notebook, 1977. Letters of complaint. Picked out on his Remington. Articles to magazines, newspapers, professional journals, most of them grievances written to anyone suspected of making him or the causes he believed in the target of injustice. 2, the Board of Education of the City of New York for its failure to recognize the High School Teachers Association before the UFT union was founded. General Motors for refusing to fix the perpetual leak in the rear window of his Buick. The IRS bemoaning his mistreatment when he was audited. When my father died, I emptied 6 drawers of carbon copies from his desk. True. Dear Beth and Ed, Ma says quick, I worked 2 hours on this family genealogy. We don't know if your plan to come to Florida is practical. A, too expensive. B, what will you do with the boys in Disney in August? C, too much time wasted. Go away on vacation and make it easy on yourself. D, both of you will be exhausted. That's no vacation. Dave's letter, August 1977. They hardly knew him. It began on a visit to their apartment in the city. One toddler out of control, racing from room to room, so he wouldn't have to watch his grandfather lifted off the floor, wheeled out on a gurney with an oxygen mask over his face. Recovered but weakened, Papa moved with Nanny to Florida. Years passed. We'd see them once a year on holidays. At first, he could still take walks with the boys, help them search for lizards, drive them to the mall for new toys, ice cream. Towards the end, he was homebound, couldn't read to them without running out of breath. On the last visit, another terrified toddler watched his grandfather wheeled out with an oxygen mask over his face. 4 months later, my father died. The boys' connection to him severed, except for a few old photos in their baby book. Because the doctor played chess with my father, the doctor refused to let him go. The doctor convinced himself my father would come back again. The doctor wouldn't listen to my mother's pleading. You know, Dave wouldn't have wanted to live like this. No sign of brain function, vital organs, arteries shut down. My father seemed to shrink to the size of a little boy under the antiseptic white sheets, his face the color of blue agates. I slipped into the ICU, touched his arm through the tubing, told him, "We'll take care of Mother," told him, "It's time." His eyelids moved, his face warmed. He tried to speak. The code blue sounded. I stepped out into the hallway. The nurses ran to his bedside. The doctor wept. My father was gone. Eulogy. People at the funeral would have little connection to the life my father led before heart disease consumed him. Marooned as he was in Florida, retirement on the edge of the Everglades, the outback of Fort Lauderdale. There would be no former colleagues, friends, business associates, few relatives besides my mother, his 2 daughters, their husbands, except for one high school fraternity brother. By sheer chance, Sam and his wife bought a condo unit 1 floor below my parents. My father was the eldest of 3 brothers. One came to the service. The other didn't care to attend, wasn't interested. The only words that came to mind were from a poem I'd memorized in grade school. Write me as one who loves his fellow men. Back at the apartment, we finished the bottle of Armagnac he drank for his blood pressure. Shared stories about Dave late into the night. Let me tell you something about that line, write me as one that loves his fellow men. It's from the poem that you may have learned as a kid, Abu Ben Adam, written by Leigh Hunt. It's about a tribal sheik who falls asleep, and the angel of the Lord comes and asks him if he loves the Lord. And he says, write me as one who loves his fellow men. And the poem ends this way. That night the angel reappeared and brought with him the list of those whom God had blessed. And lo, Ben Adam's name led all the rest. And now I'm going to call on my fourth wonderful reader, Anne Bookman. poet. I'm going to get the introduction right this time, Anne.
No worries.
Poet, a teacher, a social justice advocate. Her recent collection, which by the way is wrenching, is called Bloodlines, is both a family history and an exploration of grief and resilience. And Anne, I want to introduce what you're saying to talk about grief when you're reading this poem. The book is dedicated to my sister, my history, and I did the best without you. So I decided you wanted to read the poem about my sister, and I'm very happy that you chose it. Anne Bookman.
Thank you, Beth. And I just want to congratulate you on this wonderful book. It's extremely moving. I also want to thank the Hudson Valley Writer Center for introducing us. I had the pleasure of doing a reading with Beth and a couple of other people in Sleepy Hollow, New York. And we've been in touch ever since. So thank you so much. I'm very honored to be included, Beth.
Honored to have you.
And I have to say, the dedication to your sister made me cry. When I read it, I had lost my brother recently, and it made me cry, what you said. Okay. Big sister. She played the queen, I, her knave. I'd hold her robe, carry her train, walk behind, you must behave. She wore the crown in our domain. I'd hold her robe, carry her train, make believe palace in her room. She wore the crown in our domain, sometime queen, groveling groom. Make believe palace in her room, courtly dancer in mommy's heels, sometime queen, groveling groom. She the star, I the one who kneels. Courtly dancer in mommy's heels, walk behind, you must behave. Still the star, I the one who kneels, always the queen, I her knave. I'm going to put my glasses on because that was blurry. Okay, this poem is called No Time to Mourn. Beth, do you want to say something from the notes about that?
I will at the end, yes.
Okay. No time to mourn. 2 years after my father died, I heard a song over the car radio. The leader of the band is tired, and his eyes are growing old. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I pulled over and cried, called out to no one for the first time.
Thank you, Anne. What I wanted to say, as some of you may know, the music of the 70s. It's from the song Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg. And the poem ends, that line ends, the leader of the band is tired and his eyes are growing old, but his blood runs through my instrument and his song is in my soul. Okay, I wanted to show you something, if I can get it on screen for you. The inspiration for that poem about my sister came from a photograph, an old photo I found in the album. It's a picture of my sister and I playing princess and knave. And it was originally written as an ekphrastic poem, but I just wanted to show you where the inspiration came from. Okay, we're heading towards the last part. I found out something through reading this notebook, this spiral notebook. that my father was one of the original advocates for the Endangered Species Act and had testified to Congress in the 1960s to establish it. And a lot of the work that he did in his retirement was writing articles to various journals and scientific magazines about the environment, about preserving animal refuges, about preserving animal life and the environment and our entire ecology. And so these poems are going to be in the last part about that ending part of his life in which he made such a tremendous contribution. Final entry. In his last year, when physical activities were shut down by arterial destruction, even my father's lifelong need to tinker succumbed. The mini workshop he built inside the hall closet when they moved to Florida, tools labeled by size, shape, and type, sat behind the door untouched, unless my mother called the handyman to fix the leaky toilet. But he could still play chess and write. This is the poem that really is a true adaptation of his writing into the poem itself, adapted from Dave's notebook, 1977, African Small Cats. I have written enough about the plight of the cheetah and the leopard, but there are others of this family, the serval, the caracal, civet, and genet. They are numerous in their habitat, but can be seen in a zoo. They are skillful and cunning, without the size and weight of their big cousins. All have fine markings, can be bought in uncontrolled areas, poachers' markets, Dakar, Mordovia, Timbuktu. So far, they have survived in sufficient numbers, but unless habitat controls, enforcement of poaching regulations are continued, they too may become extinct. Adapted from Dave's notebook, written for a journal for England. This is a pantoum. The North American gray wolf. The future of the wolf is still in doubt, a subject of much interest to conservationists. Just a few grays left. In Minnesota, the timber wolf subspecies. A subject of much interest to conservationists, Alaska's herd, 100,000. In Minnesota, the timber wolf subspecies. Canada still has a few. Alaska's herd, 100,000. The red wolf is almost extinct. Canada still has a few. All wolves in the lower 48 endangered. The red wolf is almost extinct. Some of the specimens have been tagged, radio-collared. All wolves in the lower 48 endangered. A 15-year study is still in progress. Some of the specimens have been tagged, radio-collared. Just a few grays left. A 15-year study is still in progress, but the future of the wolf is still in doubt. This was 1977. Okay, now I have to introduce this by another facet of my father. He was the most rabid baseball fan you ever saw. And he taught me how to make scorecards at the ballpark. And this, let's see if I can show a picture of this. It's in the book. It's a copy of the handmade scorecards that he made himself Much of it wouldn't be decipherable for those who make out your own scorecards because he made up his own. It is a scorecard for the October 1977 World Series, Game 5 of the World Series battle between the rivals, the New York Yankees and the Dodgers. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, the names are written. This is the one for the Yankees. It contains the names of Rivers, Randolph, Bunsen, Jackson, Blair, and Piniella, etc. And he has, the other one is for the Dodgers, of course. I was a rabid Dodger fan, being a Brooklyn girl, but my father, even though we lived in Brooklyn, he was raised in Harlem and was a rabid Giant fan, and we had terrible fights over it. This is the scorecard for the Dodgers. Lopes, Russell, Smith, Say, Garvey, Baker. If you're baseball fans, you know who they are. And this is called the last scorecard. At first glance, it could be an ordinary scorecard, the kind my father taught me how to make at the ballpark. Player rosters, RBIs, innings. Only this one wasn't sketched in the upper deck of Ebbets Field. It was created for the third game of the 1977 World Series between historic rivals, the Dodgers and the Yankees, by a man watching the game on TV, bedridden, trying to keep his mind occupied. But I see my father's hand in every row and column. 1, the gambler, taking on the odds, potential versus results, estimating every player's possibility for scoring, just as he tried to do at the blackjack table. 2, the pattern maker, arranging numbers and spaces with mathematical precision, just as he did in the factory with the garments he designed. 3, the chess player, calculating the strengths and weaknesses of opponents, just as he might have done to invent a video game for his grandchildren. The father, ravaged by heart disease, documenting the 1977 World Series, 2 months before he died. Now, last but not least, I'm going to call on my friend, poet, Hudson Valley Writers Group workshop attendee with me, and Tony Anthony Howarth. That's the British pronunciation. If you live west of the Mississippi River, you have put the R back into your speech, and it's Anthony Howarth with an R. So I'm going to ask, as he requested, for Tony to introduce himself. Tony, you want to unmute yourself? Tony, are you still with us? Unmute yourself, Tony.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
There you
good.
are.
All right. Sorry.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, this is called Before and After. Before my father's heart failed, the first few years in Florida, very good. Saturday night dances at the clubhouse, mother's bingo games. She always won. Father's billiard tournaments. He always won. He swam lip laps at the pool. The dog paddled. She dog paddled in her homemade flowered sun hat. He took long walks at sunset. She learned to drive. After My father's visits to the hospital became more frequent. Trips to the ER went from once a month to once a week. He spent his days in bed watching the baseball or Star Trek, kept track of the 40 pills he took every day to stay alive. She spent her days on her porch, the lanai in Florida ease. Her only companions, cigarettes, croquet hooks, knitting needles. Before my mother went into the nursing home, after my father died, she sold the condo, came back to New York to the daughters she knew would take care of her, sat on a bench outside her building, alone, called the other neighbor ladies pigeons. Once, when I visited, an elegant man was sitting next to her. When I approached, she said, "You have to leave. My daughter's here." He graciously apologized, moved on. I told her, "Mom, he seems nice. Why don't you ask him up for a cup of coffee?" Her reply, "I'll never wash any man's dirty socks ever again." Yeah. And this one is called Legacy. Last week, I received 2 copies of my father's book. As far as I know, the only 2 still in print, World of Furs, a coffee table book published 3 years before he died. The cover reflects the artistry of its contents. Of its contents. The title scrolled in earth-colored letters embedded in a gold background. I'll keep 1 copy, send the other to the high school students in the fur program so they can learn the history of their craft. Yesterday, I walked along a line of conifers on a hill outside my house. One of the trees had fallen, snapped in half by nor'easter winds. Pines are usually hardy, immune to winter storms and harsh weather. This tree must have been weakened by disease, an invasive parasite, or an inborn defect in its vascular system. This morning, the tree surgeon came, sawed it down, took the logs and branches away. All that remains of the trunk is a luminous gold circle embedded in the ground. Proof that a living tree was there.
Thank you, Tony. And I will introduce you retroactively as a brilliant poet of 4 books and one of the dearest friends. Okay, I'm about to close off with the final 2 poems in the book, as I began with the first 2. And this is a sonnet that he was planning. I wrote it as a sonnet, but this is from an article he was planning. And this article was written the November before he died. It's called An Historical Flashback, adapted from Dave's notebook, 1977. A sonnet. As early as 1930, a special Senate Committee on Conservation of Wildlife Resources came to this conclusion: the primary threat to wildlife was the loss of habitat, due in part to drainage, deforestation, fire, disease, water pollution, and the extended occupation of land by agriculture and industry. All subsequent studies have reinforced the original analysis by this committee, which applies today not only to the US, but the rest of this fragile earth. December 1951, December 2021. Matchbook cover closed. Candle of remembrance burns. Through my window, snow. Thank you all for coming. And I'm going to open up the, thank you all my readers once again, and especially to Roxanne Hoffman. And it was wonderful that you could be here and share this book launch with me. Okay, I'm going to open up your videos if you wish, and definitely your audios, or put something in the chat room that you wanted to talk about. So the floor is open, and I'm open for any questions or comments or things that you would want to add. Everybody is hello.
That was really special. I enjoyed that immensely. It gives a different breath to it, listening to it.
What did your mother major in the needle trades high school? You have her, Mike, you have her. In those days, they had to write in the specialized high schools in New York, where you had to apply for them to get in.
I can give you some of the stuff that's here in her some of the
She had to write a senior thesis, right? In high school.
Yeah, there's some, I don't know if she had to, I don't know if she had to write it or if she had to draw it, but I mean, here's some of the drawings in it.
Mhm.
I mean, this thing is about as wide as the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, everything is frayed out. I forgot I even
Did
had.
she work as a seamstress?
Yes, she worked at a seamstress on 134th Street in Alexandria Avenue somewhere.
Yeah, in the garment district.
Yeah, she made blankets and sweaters, and they used to call them pockets because the fabric would be made. They would make them as pockets first, and then stitch all the pockets together. So they call them pocket blankets, pocket jackets. It was really, there's a few of them here in the house somewhere.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just remembered this when I was going back over your thing. Yeah, this says 1941. Oh, it actually says my mother's maiden name is Leonardi. And it says Sebastiana Leonardi 10/31/41, which 31 happens to be Emily's birthday. So I got to go up there and show her that. But there's some great, I mean, here's some of the stitching that she's done on it. I don't want to get too crazy here, but so, and you can see how frayed everything is.
Oh, we had a scholarship fund for about 10 years after my father died, and his name at the High School of Fashion Industries to allow them to go on to either Parsons or the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And we raised money in his name. A lot of it's in the book, by the way, the letter sent from about 1978, 79, when we started the scholarship fund. But these students had to do this, and they also, during their high school years, their senior year, my father managed to get them internships, paid internships in their senior year to work with various furriers and leather workers and other people so that they could learn their trade and have an internship along with, it was required in the school that they had to do an internship in order to prepare them to go either directly into the industry or to go on to college. And it's very, very different today. Very different.
Beth, I wanted to just ask a question about your father being an environmentalist. He was so much ahead of his time.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if you could, I find those poems to be a wonderful complement to the family history and all of the stuff about the fur trade and the teaching he did. But tell us more about how
Well,
he
there is a whole section in the two books he wrote, one in 1950. Even there were the beginnings of the endangered species. I read about the wild cats in particular. They were destroying, and it continues today. The sables are still being caught in the wild in Russia and China, and they're no longer permitted in the United States. None of the endangered furs are permitted. It's mostly mink because minks are farmed, and that's about it. And there's a whole resurgence, by the way. Furs are beginning to come back again because they realize that the artificial materials that they use in most of our clothing are not biodegradable. They are killing the environment. And my father had a section in a 1950 book at the end of the book about the tigers and other members of the cat family that were being decimated because of the overhunting of them. It still continues in Russia. I don't know if they care about the fact that, there are no more sables in the wild, but he tried very hard to protect these animals and working very hard to get rid of the poaching is still going on with the elephants, as much as the law requires you not to kill them, it's still going on behind because it's money, it's money. Any other questions?
Yeah. Is there any organization that he favored that would be environmentally friendly, or do you have?
Well, I'd have to look through he sent these articles out to various journals. I don't know where they went. The last few years, he couldn't type anymore. Most of the stuff was on his typewriter, but he just wrote them in pencil in the journal, hoping to convert them, to send them out, to have somebody type them up and send them out. So I don't have a list of the journals that these articles were sent to and the organizations that he's working with, except to know that he did do the original testimony in the 1960s to develop the Endangered Species Act, which we still hopefully will continue to live by. Who knows what's going to happen now? But the wolves are still, when I read that article about the wolves, the gray wolf, in 1977, we were in the same place now with the gray wolves as we were in 1977. And when they tried to reintroduce them to Yosemite, it was a big brouhaha, with the cattle and tried to make some kind of adjustment for them to be able to live in their environment because they need huge territories, the wolves. They have a huge territory. And it's in conflict with the cattle owners. So, but they're trying to build some kind of fencings that will satisfy one and both together. And he was still involved in this until the day he died.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other thing is people have, hi, how are you? Colleen, you made it.
Sorry to be late, but better late than never. I got to hear you read this part 3. Congratulations. I think I asked you this a very long time ago, but I don't remember what the answer was. Why, what spurred you to work on this book now? And I know now, you've been working on it for several years, but was there like a triggering event or, why did you feel like you could start delving into this material fairly recently?
I didn't find it, Helene. It was buried in a box that I just moved with and left it there. And it wasn't labeled. So when I moved back to New York from Florida, I just put it in the storeroom. And then one day I said, what's in this one? Maybe it's stuff I need to throw out. And I opened it up and I said, you weren't here for the beginning. In it was this notebook. You see the red notebook over there? Do me a favor and I'll show you. And our family ration cards from World War II and other really, really precious old things like this. And I started to open it up. It's barely legible at this point because it's in pencil. Here it is.
Yeah, I remember you showing it to us in class some time ago.
And there's the cover of the book has a reproduction in the background of one of the pages.
Yeah.
As you move through it, you can see more and more and more corrections, errors. And one of the things I decided to do when I wrote this book is I wasn't going to correct the errors. I put brackets around the errors so that people would be able to read it. But I decided that I was going to have his words in the exact and not to correct it. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but that was what was in my heart. You know, the diminishment was absolutely incredible. Yeah. And why pick at that time? You know, I was busy with the 9/11 book, as you know, and I said, as soon as I'm finished, I'm going to get to this. How? You know, I just was writing poems and then it began to take shape as a collaborative hybrid. And I took a risk. Any other questions?
Thank you.
It's so good to see you, Helene. Any other questions from my poet friends or challenges in the group? It's either that good or it's that boring.
No, man, it was that good. It wasn't boring. It's far from boring.
Really good.
Okay. It's my self-deprecating nature when I'm in front of my own work, right?
We all do it.
You always think, if I could have only added this, right? It's a constant mini management that stops you from being able to move ahead. But I did on this, and I'm glad I did. It's closest to my heart. You know, this is the third full manuscript book that I turned into a book. And I've only been writing poetry since I retired as a teacher and earlier on as a speech pathologist. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, my first book came out. So it's been a very short journey. Any other questions?
But a prolific one.
Very productive.
Thank you. And you also, right?
Yep. Post-retirement.
Post-retirement. Well, I wasn't quite retired at that time. I was still working and doing consulting work, but I felt this all of my life, you know, that I'd always written poems for people and, you know, in between work and degrees and all the rest, you know the story, Anne. And it's always been my first love. And whenever I'm in trouble, I go back to my poetry shelf and I pull out somebody's book and I read again, you know. Someone is always just right for the situation I'm in, right?
Yes,
In the world of poetry.
Do you approach the bookshelf with an idea of who it might be or just where your hand lands?
No, I remember in my mind, just as I said at the beginning, I wrote in the book and the book wrote in me. It's in Roger coming, and I went back to that because I remembered that line. And I went back to the poem, like I went back to Ellen Bass's book, because I had remembered that line from How to Apologize, you know? So you go back when a thought comes to you, when you're in a situation and you remember a particular poet or a particular line that sticks with you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have them too, right? And they
Yeah.
they pop out when the situation occurs, you know? And that's true for all of us. Everybody who's a reader, really, particularly poetry, because poets, Elizabeth Bishop once said, poets tell the truth. Always tell the truth.
Yeah.
That's what got me into reading Elizabeth Bishop again. She was interviewed on a radio station, and that's what she said. And I said, oh, going back to the book. Anything else? Okay, I have listed in the chat where you can find your links to the book. And I'm about to enter some of the information into my website this week about the book. And if you want to keep in touch with me, you've got my email address listed and also my website listed. I look forward to seeing a lot of you again and again and again through the years. And thank you all for coming. And once again, a shout out to Roxanne for putting this together for me.
Thank you,
you all for
everybody.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Great show.
Wonderful.
See everybody somewhere down the road.
Yeah, it's coming.
Hello? Oh, we're still here. Feels like Brownstone Road's in the way. How we end up. With a fabulous reading, and I learned a lot more. And you know what? It's good to hear her words. Good to hear the words come to life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I got another perspective of understanding the book even better this time around. It was very touching, very moving.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I have to say, she did a great job.
Okay, it's just us now.
She did a good job. I think you guys were fabulous. The reading was great.
She finished before 4:00.
Yeah. No, she had it everything.
Yeah.
Well organized.
A science, down to a science, man.
Yeah. We had 20 people on. I think there was
we really had 22, but Carolyn had to leave, and so did the guy from Cultivating Voices. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have had 22, and she said so the other people were supposed to come, but I guess something happened, whatever.
Yeah, well, they'll get I sent everybody the
Oh yeah, the Zoom link. Yeah, the special live stream link. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. Good old brownstones. We set the stone for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing reading.
Yeah, good job.
I thought
I
you
am
were
so
gonna read.
zonked out today. I don't know. I
thought you were going to read today.
No, it's just helping her with the Zoom.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I promised her when the book came out that I would, that if she wanted to, I would host a Zoom for her. And I think it went really well. She probably could have gotten more people, but she was really trying to keep it to like family and friends.
Yeah, and she didn't want. She was afraid about the Zoom bomb, as if you.
But I kept telling her the way we have it set up, they can't bomb because
right.
everybody gets
you.
Yeah, personal link. Yeah. I didn't send out I didn't send out the meeting ID and password till the end, till today.
Oh.
So.
And whatever she did because it's her reading.
Right. It was good.
I don't shred. Oh, by the way, that poem I wrote this morning, thank God I re-edited it. I'm thinking of sending it to the Atlantic when I calm down a little bit, probably for
Oh,
my,
yeah. No, it's
I
good.
think that and definitely the suicide one. I gotta check a few more, but this is like,
Good job.
it just flowed on me. The first draft
That's
was a
the one
little
you
bit.
should make a video of to send to Steve Bloom to that thing where he's asking for the
Yeah, that's after my birthday. The allergies are so bad.
I know.
Horrible. I didn't take my pills today. Shit. And it's raining. It's like, you know.
It's not raining here. It rained last night.
It just stopped here. It
It's good.
stopped. Let's see. Yeah, the streets are drying up. But it was raining before.
It was really coming down.
It's gonna be raining every day.
And it sounded like hail last night. It was really.
It was hailing. I saw a TikTok video in
Oh,
Paris.
it was hailing because that's what it sounded like. It sounded like hail.
Yeah, I wonder what Jack will tell you about, because I'm sure, it's in Paris. I'm sure he lived through it.
Oh my God, he had it last night. Yeah. Same weather.
Yeah, I mean, it shows from the balconies, like, I mean, big chunks, like little, like.
Oh my goodness.
Crazy
They didn't go for the late night walk.
No, because Tony would have been.
Yeah.
No, that would have hurt the dog.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it would have hurt Jack too. No,
Yeah, but especially the dog. The dog is tiny.
Yeah, I think they went home. They were home. They stayed home.
Because those little things, with a smaller dog, that's like snowballs for humans.
Right.
Think about. Would you want me to read this?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Let me just turn the live stream off. I realize they still have it on record.
Oh my God. Well, you can edit it out, right?
Yeah. But let me just turn the live stream off. Yeah. Find the live stream.